Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing
Enola Holmes 3.
And the Invite. Okay, I'll
I
start.
just want to be honest. We were at the door before we rang, and we could hear you were fighting.
Oh, we were fighting.
We were fighting, yeah.
Bit of a contentious environment in here, so I understand if that's repellent to you. No hard feelings, you know what I mean? Completely understand, you know?
We love a contentious
The
environment.
trailers for this film made me very curious about it because the trailers were very obvious about one thing.
I agree. It's like this film is about one thing and one thing only. And it's,
Swinging. It is like,
Yeah.
this is a film about swinging, right?
yeah.
And I was like, but surely, if the trailer is just telling me that, it can't be just about that. There has to be something else.
Exactly. It has to be more than that. Otherwise,
I mean, it can be about that, but it's just like the way the trailers were structured made you feel like this is what you're hooking me in with, but this is not what the whole crux is about. You know,
Like the
you're
drama.
not telling me something. Yeah. So very basically, it is kind of this two couple played by Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde, Joe and Angela, who are in this like bickering-ish type marriage. Joe is this music teacher, and Angela is just this, let's say stay-at-home mom, right? And they've invited over their neighbors, played by Penelope Crux and Edward Norton, Pina and Hawk, right?
Right.
And it is technically about swinging, but it is about, trust me, so much more than that, and I'll get into it. There was a film last year with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman called The Roses,
Yes, of course.
which was much more of this bickering marriage comedy.
Yes.
And this film reminded me so much more of that as soon as it started.
Mhm.
It is so much of a bickering marriage comedy,
Right.
but where The Roses was also like trying to look at this marriage. I think what The Invite does is a bit more interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before I get to all of that, I firstly want to talk about Olivia Wilde. Anaina, do you remember what was the last movie Olivia Wilde directed?
I'm not sure this was the last, but wasn't it Don't Worry, Darling?
It was Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah.
That film, again, had so much weird marketing behind it. It had Harry Styles. It was a real movie.
Yes, it had Harry Styles, it had Florence Pugh, it had Olivia Wilde, and it had,
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine.
Yeah, and that film did not work for so many different reasons. It felt like that film was just put together in such a catastrophic way. So honestly, this is a really great comeback from Olivia Wilde because this film really, really does work in so many ways. And I think another reason this film works is the writing, which is Rashida Jones and Will McCormack, who have not really done anything like writing-wise like that big. Rashida Jones mainly was in Parks and Rec, but has written other things with Will McCormack
But is
as
known
well.
for comedic style acting and performance.
Yes, absolutely. So starting off, like three things I'm gonna like structure this with, right?
Mhm.
Which is the acting, the screenplay, and the cinematography, and then I'm gonna come in and like how the direction ties this all together, right?
Mm.
So with the cast, there's just 4 people in this film. There's no one else. It's just Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. That's all the cast there is to this film.
Amazing.
Starting off, Seth Rogen, great use. Seth Rogen is often like this stunt casting, especially in animated works, I feel, where he's just known for his laughter of the kind of laughter.
It just felt
I'm not going to
like
keep that in. That was such a bad impression.
No, he's there as a gag, basically.
Yeah. He's there to laugh weirdly and smoke weed.
Yeah.
And he does smoke weed here. But I think this is a great performance from Seth Rogen. This actually feels like it got so much out of Seth Rogen. And his character, the emotional beats, the frustration, he oftentimes is like this fuse looking to go off, and he does a really good job to present that.
Okay.
I think that was really, really well done. I really enjoyed that. So was Olivia Wilde, who's like repression also feels like it's needs to come out, but it's not. Like a lot of what works is their dynamic. You really do believe that these people can be together, but at this moment they cannot. Like it is a marriage that feels fine at its seams, but it's constantly cracking, and both of them really play off each other really well. Right?
Sure.
Olivia Wilde also really has a lot of things that she is communicating through her body language, which are really well done. I think that really works, especially in the presence of Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton, right?
Right.
And I also like Edward Norton's use of here. I think his is a much more subtle use. Like he's playing this cool, subtle guy he's this guy. You're like, I want to put you down, but nothing you seem to do is able to dim his energy.
Right. So he kind of like anything you throw at him, he's just like, okay.
It bounces back. Yeah. And he becomes such a great foil to Seth Rogen here.
Yeah, I
who
think
just
kind
keeps being so annoyed at him.
Yeah, I can see that kind of vibe coming off of them, not just from the trailer, but as like actors as well.
Yeah. And lastly, Penelope Cruz. I remember we were talking about this before. You mentioned like with the drama, we mentioned like it didn't feel like the film understood Zendaya being the only person of color in that main cast.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think this film really makes a point that Penelope Cruz is a person of color in
So
this
it
cast.
fully like acknowledges and leans into that. It's like aware of that.
Yeah, because not only is Penelope Cruz speaking Spanish throughout the film, in putting it into words and like trying to communicate, finding loss of words throughout the film and having that be an issue. And even her Spanish communication between her and Hawk is a point that is brought up towards the film as well.
Right.
So it is something that is not only addressed, but is very much a part of a character. And Penelope Cruz is also like playing this woman who has such an aura to her, who is not just an exotically hot person, but also someone who has a lot of like knowledge, has a lot of ideas, and like is able to be passionate about her ideas in that sense as well.
Okay, that's good to hear, because quite often like Penelope Cruz, but not just like other Latin American actresses specifically like her, have been cast in similar roles. It's just like the kind of sexy, suave, mysterious like woman of color, but then there's not more to her. Like that's her entire appeal.
She is like, even when her anger is out, her anger doesn't feel like one dimensional. It feels like it has understanding, idea to it. Her happiness is there. Her like, there's so many things she's like bringing into it, and I think it's done really, really well. Like you said, I think a lesser script would have just used that as a comedic premise. This is just not a lesser script, really.
Right.
And like, this is one I think come back to, because I think this is genuinely probably the strongest of the pillars of this film. Right? Like, firstly, it is a funny script. It is really nice to laugh with an audience in a cinema, and this film is
always
so funny.
Always, yeah.
And like I said, I'll get more into the plot. The swinging doesn't come into like up to like 50 minutes into the film.
Interesting. And this film
and
is
that's
like
not even like them prepositioning them. Yeah, this film is like exactly like
107 minutes.
And the actual preposition of it, like Hawk and Pina proposing them to join, isn't even done till like even later into the film.
Right.
So you only have like 30 or 35-ish minutes to the last lap. And it's even without that element there, it is able to keep its interest so well done, right? It is able to constantly derive so much humor from the awkwardness, this tension, this constant clashing. Someone's going to say something, someone's happening here, someone's jumps up here.
Right.
It really keeps you hooked. Because again, it's not about swinging. It's about two people who have lost each other and have therefore lost their happiness, meeting with two people who have found each other and have found happiness.
Right.
I'm so proud of that line. I was so happy when that came into my head. I was like, that's a great review line. Yeah. But like, even like small moments, I really like when a film does this, and it has to do it well with, you know, where characters just talk over each other.
Yes.
There are most of the instances of people just talking over each other, because that's how real life people just bicker. You don't like wait for the person to finish and say the thing.
There's no like, I'll wait for you to finish your point. Now you say your point. Now I'll say my point. It's really like very natural flowing conversation, not just when you're bickering, but just in general is also quite overlapping. And it is quite hard to write that and then have that translate as well.
Exactly. But it does really well. And it has so many great moments that are always building. Like the film, as soon as it resolves something, it is immediately building something up again. And it just keep going and going and going. And as soon as you're like, okay, this happened, then it slowly brings you to... It really is like such a well-written screenplay, like a polished screenplay is what I meant to say. Like, even with an actors that were not doing great as a job and some other components of this film, I still think this film's like script would shine. Like, you would read this and have a great time reading. Right. Is what
which is interesting, because I just read up that this film is based off of another Spanish film that was based off of a play.
Yes.
Which, when you said like just 4 people or whatever, I'm like, oh, that would be a really good play. And then when I was like, and then I started looking into it, I was like, Okay, makes sense. So I see what you mean by like, no matter who's playing it, as long as the kind of writing sticks to these crux, you can kind of see it reflect really well.
Yes, this is a great point. Perfect segue. You mentioned this could be a play, and I thought about that. But the film convinced me that the way this is done, if it has been a play, but this is a really great translation because this could not be a play. This film, as I saw it, could not be made into a play. The reason I say this is the cinematography.
Which is a good thing because a film should be a film and a play should be a play. And adaptations of each other should be good.
Exactly. So the cinematographer is Adam Newport-Berra, who did the cinematography for some other comedy films like Good Fortune, Splitsville, also Blink Twice, which I liked as well. Has some concert films with Shawn Mendes. But I think the reason this works is there's so many interesting shot choices. There's one thing in my head where Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen are like shot in two opposing doorways through this angle. And thought that's a really interesting showing like this literal wall between them. And there's the same situation, but with Olivia Wilde and Edward Norton's character doing the same thing. But Edward Norton walks towards the other side as that scene ends, which is, again, just a good visually way of doing it, right?
Right, of course.
There's another scene that I remember where, like, the initial scene where everyone comes over and they're kind of, like, bickering in a weird quadrant way. And all of them are, like, felt like they're at corners of in northeast, southwest angles of the room. And the camera's just, like, one person close up to each of them. And that also works really well as these talking heads kind of idea. That's done really well throughout the film.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think this film really does use its cinematography excellently to follow along, to pay attention, to create the sense of anxiety, to bake tension, to create sense of euphoria or even like sexual tension as well, which is present throughout the film. Like, again, this is about swinging. They do, kind of get to. And I'm not really telling you a lot about the plot because I think if you're listening to this, just watch it. It is genuinely worth your time. And like I said, I think what does bring this together is the direction in all of this, right?
Right.
Because you have these people giving really good performances, but it is under a script that really makes them like work for it. And I think it is Olivia Wilde who's able to like merge all of these three things so well together.
Right. I mean, that's how you know it's a good sign of direction when all the elements kind of line up.
Yeah, exactly. It feels everything's taking its place really well. That you don't have when they're talking over each other, that it feels chaotic. No, it feels natural. It feels chaotic in the way that it's meant to be. It doesn't lose you. It further pulls you in. Right? The film ends where it means to. Scenes feel like they cut and they pick up exactly where they need to when even we split up our characters. And I think that, again, it puts in elements. It like you can watch this film back and appreciate smaller things back. Again, is what I'm trying to say. When I'm thinking about it, that's what I'm going back to. And I think, again, Regen, we just credit to Olivia Wilde for making this come together. I think the script also succeeds. The reason I mentioned Rashida Jones is when you have a woman of color,
right,
part of the screenplay, you can see that it's translated into making sure Penelope Crux also has those elements within the film to make that a point of reference, talk about it, and bring that together.
Right. I mean, I'm glad it's working out well for Olivia Wilde.
Yeah, I'm really happy this worked out well. And again, I would be interested to watch the Spanish film this is based on, Vinci de Casa.
Yes.
But the reviews I've heard of that film are not as good as this one. So could be like you just find something, you heighten it. I don't know. I haven't watched it, so I'm not going to like say it's bad or good.
Yeah.
But like, I'm really genuinely happy I watched it. It was a great watch, genuinely. And I feel so many elements worked so good together. It's a brilliant comedy, but also like just such a good relationship film. Like, it's a film that I will think about multiple times because it gave me words for feelings I've had. It gave me words to process things that I've already thought about, but not put them in those perspectives. And I think genuinely that might be the best part of this film, how it ends and what it leaves you with.
Right.
Aside from the laughs.
It is on my watch list. And speaking of films that leave you with things,
yes,
I've never thought of Enola Holmes as a series of films that, leaves you with pretty much anything.
Eudora Holmes, will you take I, Ernest Augustus of the House of Tewkesbury, to be your husband?
Yes. He has a first name. I was surprised too.
Hey, little sister, what have you done?
Given the
family's history. I presume the wedding will be in Malta?
Malta. Malta. It will be great.
They're fun. They're kind of
Okay.
entertaining. But
Yeah.
this
They've
last
Henry
one.
Cavill.
Exactly. They have Henry Cavill, but like Henry Cavill is just Sherlock. The star is Millie Bobby Brown as Enola.
Yes.
And then you have Louis Partridge as, kind of opposite her. And you have this whole cast full of like pretty good British actors, including like Helena Bonham Carter and kind of Sharon Duncan Brewster, and recently as Moriarty, and Himesh Patel as Dr. Watson. And it's consistent and it's fine. It's enjoyable in the moment. Each of the films kind of, so the first one released in 2020, the second one released in 2022. Both were directed by Harry Bradbeer, but this third one, which released after quite like 4 years, is directed by Philip Barantini. And like from the get-go, there is a difference in tone, at least I felt, because this is meant to be kind of like a more mature film, because the character Enola herself is matured. We're told there's a 6-year gap. So we do a 6-year time jump from the second film to this third film, and we're at Enola's wedding to Tewkesbury.
Oh.
However, we start with a chase scene.
I say also like I've kept up with these films and know exactly what the plot was.
Yeah. But the wedding is kind of like she was just like 18 in the last film. What's
okay.
But then the time jump but then the time jump kind of explains it better. And we are meant to be in, the Victorian era. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to focus on in this review is a lot about the plot and then just a little bit about the other elements, because the plot was the most surprising thing to me. So it's no surprise that Enola Holmes deals with, like the movies have dealt with social issues, especially the second one, which talked a lot about class in Victorian era England and, the way the working classes were treated. So it kind of readapts, kind of fictionalizes real life things, such as in the second one, it was about the matchstick factory scandal, where young women who were workers in this matchstick factory were, falling ill.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Right. And so it's...
Yeah, because of the sulfur on the matchsticks.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Yes. So that's what the second one is about. And then this third one is about colonialism, British Empire colonialism.
Okay.
So basically, Enola and...
I'm cautious.
Same. So when the kind of colonialism bit came up, I was like, you could go very, very wrong with this, especially considering this is a British institution film set in the Victorian era, right? So Enola's wedding is in Malta. And I was a little bit ashamed to not know that Malta was a British colony.
I mean, probably more than half of the world was. So like...
It shouldn't be a surprise. Right? So I wasn't surprised, but I was like, one more. Okay, cool. But yeah, so we're on Malta and Sherlock essentially gets kidnapped. And Enola has to find Sherlock. And as she finds out that Sherlock has been kidnapped, she kind of misses her wedding. She stands up Tewkesbury at the altar. It's all very like, oh my God, she's such a wild whatever. And as I discuss the plot, I am going to be giving spoilers. So spoiler warnings for anyone who's like really wants to watch these. And I'm giving the spoiler warning specifically because as I slowly discovered this film was about colonialism, I kept getting more and more impressed at the turn that they were going. So, there's a lot of talk about like the British officials in Malta and kind of how their presence there is a little bit strenuous and tedious with the locals. And then this character, Michiel, played by Joe Azzopardi, who is part of the Partito Antireformista, which is basically the Maltese independence party, basically, who believe in the independence of Malta, shows up.
This feels like very much grounded in with the country it's in set in, right?
Yes.
Like I'm comparing this again, not the best film to compare this to, but another British staple, Paddington. This was one of my main complaints with Paddington in Peru. It's just like, what's the point in setting it in Peru if I don't ever feel like it's in Peru?
That's what I mean. So Paddington in Peru really was like, Peru was just incidental, right? But this one, I was gearing up to be like, we're just in Malta or whatever. But we're like learning about Maltese history, Maltese colonial history, right? Which is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And obviously through these kind of fictionalized characters, but it's there, right? And slowly, like in her...
It's more than most films do.
Exactly. And slowly, as Enola kind of finds more clues, we find out that Moriarty is behind all of this. But we find out that Moriarty has been hired by kind of soldiers or like officers or generals of the British Empire, hide certain secrets or to make sure that no one finds out, or to find basically this gold, essentially, that has been stolen from Afghanistan by British colonial officers who were fighting a war there.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And when you were saying stolen, I was like, by who?
Exactly.
Who's doing the plundering?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because it said in the film that while the British colonial officers stole it, it was blamed on the Maltese soldiers who fought alongside them.
Of course.
Right. So all of this is like very explicitly said. And basically the whole plot is that Moriarty sets up Enola to find this gold. And then this gold is taken away and hidden so that the British Empire colonial officers are protected. And it isn't kind of revealed to the rest of the world. However, obviously Enola finds it out, etc., etc. It turns out she's been played this whole time. Enola's main goal is to get Sherlock back. And alongside Sherlock, Tewksbury's mother, who's also been kidnapped. And obviously she gets them back. But what unfurls is the fact that Tewksbury's father, Tewksbury is this lord, right, who Enola is in love with and is about to marry. His father, who he looked up to so much, who he inherited his title from, was the architect of this scheme. And Tewksbury's always believed that his father was a good man and, that he did the right, honorable thing. And he finds it out and he has to grapple with it. And I think this film's strongest scene is when Louis Partridge and Himesh Patel are sat in this big colonial mansion. And Himesh Patel, who plays Dr. Watson, is talking to Tewksbury about how their fathers were both colonial officers. And as sons, they want to kind of uphold their father's honor and want to believe their fathers are the most honorable. But then Dr. Watson, who's played by an Indian person, Himesh Patel, is like...
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Like, it's I was raised to believe by my father that the British Raj was best for India. But it was not. When I went to war myself and found out what the British Empire was doing in the name of this queen or whatever, I realized what was wrong. And it's not too late to realize that the man you want... I'm paraphrasing, but that the man you want to be doesn't have to be an image or a direct reflection of your father. You can learn from their mistakes and you can unlearn, basically.
That is very interesting because I feel that they're both coming to essentially a same realization from very opposite ideas, where one person is realizing his dad was himself like part of this oppressive force, while the other is realizing how his dad played into or like believed the oppressive force and like sold into it, and like how he doesn't have to. Like one is struggling for himself, but one is struggling against himself in some senses.
Exactly. And so I think that's the strongest scene in this movie, and a really like well-written, soft scene, which you so rarely get to see when two men interact with each other in general in films as well.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to see. And then I think where I give this film all props is the conclusion, where Tewksbury and Dr. Watson go back to Afghanistan to give the gold. They do reparations. And I was like, no fucking way.
Damn.
Yeah, and Tewksbury gives up his title and gives up his name and gives up his position as a lord in the House of whatever. House of Lords, I guess. And I'm like, oh, so we really did everything. And we didn't hold on to this idea of, no, but I can work on the inside. I can make it better from the inside. Not all institutions have a bad this thing.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where Moriarty is like confronting Enola. And she's like, Tewksbury's name has blood on it. But what blood does the Holmes name have on it? What blood, every single English society family or well-off family has blood on its name.
Yeah, it's the exploitative nature of colonialism and capitalism in general.
Exactly.
And the more you've benefited from it, the more likely that you've exploited.
Exactly. And so the whole time I was watching the film, I was like, oh, so we're going there. So we're really going there. And it doesn't just go there in a very light, wishy-washy way. Sure, the overall kind of movie genre isn't this deep, serious thing, which makes the fact that such themes are addressed in this manner and kind of resolved in this manner even more, I don't know, fascinating and interesting to me. Because obviously we know that, history wasn't as simple as, oh, we took the gold, we gave the gold back. Like reparations are a ongoing dialogue.
Very long. Yeah. Also, like, though when you say that, I am curious of like sometimes with things like this, it comes across very naive.
Yes.
Like, I'm glad you're trying to do a good thing, but because you are phrasing it as like, one person gave the gold back, that's how we solved like this whole problem, instead of like really delving into it, how it perpetuates today. I'm not saying like a film needs to give you a detailed history of colonialism and every single time. But a concern I have sometimes when that happens is that it presents a solution as naive, and instead of like highlighting the complexity of the problem, weirdly minimizes them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I don't know, I think with this film, there's this in-between stage where it does have the naivety of, we returned the gold though, right? We're good people. These characters in this film are good people, and good kind of people in history can exist in this fictionalized world. But then it's also like, okay, but we didn't get an institutional answer though. We didn't get an institutional explanation, or we didn't get an institutional or kind of like a systemic understanding of it. So it holds this in-between place, which is why I say it's fascinating and interesting, and not why I say it's like, woohoo, right? And again, it kind of comes back to the fact that these are mystery films. These are kind of solve a puzzle films.
Yeah. It's not necessary. This one doesn't feel like more of a murder mystery, less of a puzzle, like you said.
Exactly. So the Enola Holmes films are a lot about puzzles to solve rather than the Sherlock ones, which are more about the mystery of it. But Sherlock does play like a pretty important role in this film as well, which is fair enough. But I think I do have criticisms of this film where, the fact that it was a puzzle and that it's set entirely up by Moriarty for Enola to kind of solve kind of feels like a cop-out for a mystery film.
Okay.
And it was also a little bit difficult to understand when they were like, when you finally do the mystery solving bit with the characters. So I do think it could have been written a little bit better in terms of actually kind of what is going on. But for me, the kind of the themes that were kind of being explored took precedence for me, because everything else was just fine. And from an Enola Holmes film, from a film that is meant to be this commercial and is meant to be, this kind of mainstream, I'm not expecting something in terms of like everything else in cinematography or music or whatever to be too, out of this world. So yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised. But it's a good, like, fun watch. If you watch the first two, definitely watch the third one. Don't kind of discount it. But if you haven't watched the first two, it's okay. You can just think about the colonialism of it all.
Just think of colonialism, guys. Just think of...
Exactly.
So those are our thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is produced solely by us with musical assets from Pixabay. If you enjoyed this, please do share it. See you again next time.
Bye-bye.